There's a big spoiler, I guess. Whoops.
Oops.
But
that's from 1998, y'all. It's going to be really hard to be spoiler free.
Yeah, right. Go watch it. It's on Peacock right now.
It is.
The Articulate Coven is the original, unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire, The Vampire Chronicles, The Lives of the Mayfair Witches, and The Immortal Universe from AMC and AMC+.
Welcome to The Articulate Coven. We are your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are The Articulate Coven. I hear you say, there's no show this week. What are y'all doing?
What are we doing here, Joel? Well, because there's a Super Bowl happening and they're not giving us Mayfair this week, we decided we'd give you a little treat.
So Ashley and I originally planned to do some book clubs and some movie nights leading up to Mayfair Season 2. And
Right.
AMC had not announced Season 2, a specific date. They just said early 2025. And so we were like, well,
we'll have time.
Surely they would have announced it by now.
Yeah, if
so
it was
we
gonna
set
be
up
January, we would know,
right.
No.
So we set up 5 movie nights and we got to do 4 because they were like, hey, we're launching as soon as January gets here, actually. We got to get this thing out the door.
Shit, we got to get to work on that.
So we excised the last one off the list. We said we'll get to it down the line, but it just so happened to fit in here. We thought, why not watch this week and make something fun? And also, and Ashley, I'll not take the credit on this. I didn't think about it ahead of time, but it is Black History Month. Very
Black
fitting.
History Month. This is a very, very appropriate film for Black History Month.
Super excited for this. We're watching Blade, folks. 1998's Blade with Wesley Snipes.
My Christ, y'all. This is a 2-hour film. This film is 2 hours long.
It's a lot of movie, man.
Woo!
And it does so many things.
I love it. And they set up so much. Oh, it's so fantastic. Okay. I love the fucking 90s so much. Like movies from the 90s, are my jam. And this one is such a great, for a second I got super excited because I was like talking to Brat. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my first Marvel movie that I ever watched, And I was like, and it was way back in the day. I didn't know it was Marvel then. And then I was like, oh no. Because there was also the 80s, which means I saw Howard the Duck. Just my first Marvel movie.
That's where I want to start. First of all, I want to put this in context as far as comic book movies go, because the first thing you need to remind yourself of, and I know some of our listeners are young enough that this is like literally before your time.
We're giving you film history, kids.
Right. Listen, it pained me a little bit to think about Blade, 1998's Blade, being a historical film, especially, to talk about in this context. But it is in a lot of different ways. So first and foremost, it's a cool character in the history of comics, created by Marv Wolfman, penciler Gene Colan. Those are the two guys that put this together. I'm fairly certain both of them are white. I know Marv is. I'm fairly certain Gene is too.
Gene sounds white. Just gonna say it.
But Marv in particular had this idea, and what it stemmed out of, the two of them were working on Teen Titans, and they created an African-American character for Teen Titans that got dismissed and had to be replaced by the publishers asked for it to be replaced with a white character. Ugh. And Gene and Marv both thought that was kind of stupid. Marv in particular was like, he went to the art school in the middle of New York, and he's like, I know most people went to school and they just went to school with people in their neighborhood. But I went to this art school where it was people from all over the city. And so the idea that there would be a black character in and amongst all of these white characters was that didn't seem weird to me or out of place or like I was changing any barriers. So anyway, when he got denied that at DC with Teen Titans, and I guess this is the original version of Teen Titans, because interestingly, Teen Titans obviously has Cyborg in it for a lot of its variations, and he is a black character. So I don't know what the deal was there, but DC said no. Marvin's up working for Marvel, and he says, I've got this idea. And literally he said he woke up from a dream and he had the full version of the character. Now in the comics, Blade is British.
I love it.
Blade is like a Constantine style character, right? Like he's got a bit of an accent and he's kind of posh, but he had the fro, and he was always very inspired by African-American culture. So in the comics, he's proficient with basically all weapons, ranging from firearms to swords. He's a master of martial arts, but he is human. He's just a human. In the original incarnation of the comics, he was a human who was immune to vampire bites for whatever reason. After he appeared in a cartoon with Spider-Man, and in that version he was a day walking, he had been like born through a bite like he is in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And then this film played him that way, and the comics changed it. And so now in the comics, I think they call him a Damp-ire, Dampyre. Anyway, the idea is,
moist.
I know, right?
I don't like that.
The idea is that he has lots of the strengths of vampirism. He has very few of the downsides of vampirism. In particular, he's not allergic to silver, and he's not allergic to sunlight.
I hope he gets to enjoy his garlic.
You do wonder whether he likes pizza, right?
Yeah, like I hope you have a nice crazy bread sometimes.
So this, it's interesting to me, and I didn't remember Blade appearing on that Spider-Man animated series, but what was happening in the 90s is Marvel was in trouble. First of all, Marvel sold off in the 90s basically all of their major characters' rights in film because they needed the money. So they had sold off Spider-Man, they had sold off the X-Men, which is the reason why Sony got to make Spider-Man movies still to this day, why Fox got to make so many X-Men movies before they got purchased.
Anything that you've ever thought is weird about how Marvel is, it's particularly with X-Men and with Spider-Man, is 100% to blame for this huge fiscal downturn that Marvel went through in the 90s. It was real.
And I guess it was, I mean, it was almost before the comics books crash. Anyway, they were in a bad way, and they had been misleveraged several times, and so they had sold off a lot of their major characters. What they had
Stan Lee
working
was
for them,
basically bankrupt at this time too. Like,
yes, you know, it was
like,
very hand to mouth.
It was not good. This was not good time, and it's so crazy to think about that now when like Marvel's just like huge, you know, and like,
I mean, it's the single biggest cinematic franchise of all time. You know, it's made something like $30 billion at this point or something. It's almost 40 movies now and a bunch of TV series too, and they're all connected. But you go from Blade in 98 to Iron Man in 2008, and it's only 10 years, and there is a direct line because of this project hitting. You got Spider-Man greenlit at Sony, and with some real money behind it, and Sam Raimi, and it got serious. They made 3 movies, all of them gangbusters. Well, X-Men started with Fox, same time. They made 1 movie and it was a hit. They made another movie and like, yes, we're off to the races. Marvel was a big deal suddenly, which meant that companies like Paramount and Universal would put enough money behind movies like Captain America, the First Avenger, and The Incredible Hulk by Louis Leterrier, and Iron Man in 2008. You know, Paramount financed that movie for Marvel, and Marvel literally put all of their IP on the line with the bank for the loans on their side of things too. Like, this whole thing could have gone very differently. And a lot of it is because this movie works.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, we have to talk about Wesley Snipes. This was his renaissance time. Like, Wesley Snipes was making the best movies. He was a huge star right now. You know, like we had Demolition Man.
You want to talk about somebody though who had some financial trouble. I mean, he had just gotten over an IRS scandal at this point.
Yeah, he did not pay his taxes. Look, listen. I'm not worried about that. That's not my business. That's not my business. He didn't hit anybody, you know, like he's not a little financial crime. I don't know. That's not my business, Joel.
I'm with you. I am very much with you. But he, like Nick Cage, like Willie Nelson before him, did a couple of projects for the government.
That's right. Did some government work. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, he had but it's like that didn't even really ding his career that much because he was so big at that time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it did a bit because he also, I think did he do a small stint in jail for it? He might have.
I think he actually did do I think it was a matter of months maybe, but yes, I think he did actually do a little bit of jail time. But, you know, he was such an interesting character, such an interesting actor for this time because he had and I don't mean to speak about him in the past tense as if he doesn't have. I will say him as a senior actor, I think is a very different thing than he was here in the 90s, right?
100%.
The range that he showed, you know, he could be so funny. I mean, bitingly funny,
hilarious.
Improvisationally funny even. Yeah. You think about movies like White Men Can't Jump and Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar.
One of my favorite movies.
Right, you forget he's in that, but like, I mean, anyway, he is an amazing, amazing actor. And the fact that he genuinely, as a person, was interested in the martial arts and pursued those sorts of things and was very physically fit makes him like just perfect at this time to do a role like this.
His work, his fight work in these movies are incredible. I mean, it's absurd.
You know, I mean, obviously viewing it from the context of 2025 and you've seen 4 John Wick movies and, you know,
right. Yeah, for
whatever,
sure.
right? Yeah. It's different. It's dated.
It is. Well, and there was a section in this, couple sections in the sword fight that I was like, well, they're just hitting their swords together in front of each other. I can't tell who's doing what at that point. Like, no one's parrying. We're just kind of clicking.
There's a moment where him and another guy just high kick at each other, but they're both out of distance, like far out of distance.
Yeah.
And they're just high kicking in each other's direction. And I'm like, is this foreplay? What is this?
Yes, it is. We're tickling each other. It's vampiric, Joel. Damn it.
Oh, man. All right. I'm so excited to get into this, though. And genuinely, like, no spoilers, but this character has an appearance in a very recent Marvel movie. So, like, this is suddenly relevant and actually MCU adjacent. One of the things that I think Kevin Feige is doing right now in the MCU, and God bless him for it, I think he genuinely is giving all those other disparate Marvel projects a swan song, you know, of one kind or another. I would not be surprised, for instance, if in these upcoming Avengers movies that we don't see some of the weird Fantastic Four movie that Josh Trank did. You know, Michael B. Jordan was a Human Torch, for instance.
Yeah.
I think we could absolutely see him.
You could not make me care less about the Fantastic Four. I was so excited about this one that's coming up.
Okay,
this cast
good.
is so fucking good. And then I watched that trailer and I was like, that's how I felt. And then I was like, maybe I just don't give a fuck about the Fantastic Four.
I have a special place in my heart for the fan. So the Fantastic, quickly, side note, because I'm just a comics nerd and we're talking about MCU today.
Yeah, I mean, we're all up in it.
But I did post in our group about that Fantastic Four trailer. The 2 things coming this summer that I think, first of all, we've got one that's about to be in movie theaters right now with a Black Captain America, which I'm very excited about. Anthony Mackie's my dude. He just purchased a big piece of property like a year ago or 2 years ago in New Orleans East, built as a movie studio.
Hell yeah, yes.
So like that dude's doing the right thing in his own community. So like kudos to him too.
Yeah, we love him.
And like Chris Evans before him, what a thankless task it is to have to suit up as Captain America and wear everybody's freaking expectations and you know, whatever. But I feel like he's doing a great job so far. I'm super excited about that movie.
Yeah.
Then this summer, though, in July, we get Superman from James Gunn, the first movie in the DCU, his version of this connected universe. And it looks so positive and so hopeful and so much of a throwback to the great things about those Christopher Reeve movies, for instance.
I can accept that.
Go look at that trailer and look at the way that Lois Lane looks and tell me that is just not Lois Lane.
In this one?
I can't even think of the actress's name. They've not gotten her
right in a single one of these.
I think they nailed. I don't even think she speaks in the trailer that we've seen so far. I don't think anybody speaks except for Superman. But she just nails it. The sass and the cocked hip and the whole 9 yards. Anyway, I'm excited about that. And then this Fantastic Four movie. So Pedro Pascal plays Reed Richards. You got Vanessa Kirby,
and I love her.
Sue. She's amazing.
Fantastic.
Eben Moss Bacharach from The Bear is Ben Grimm thing, and he's amazing, and what a great choice. And also, I think it might be the first time that a Jewish actor has portrayed him, so like that's awesome because the thing is Jewish.
It's the marvelous Mrs. Maisel that's playing Lois Lane. Rachel Brosnahan.
Yes.
Yeah.
I knew her from something else.
I liked that casting when I heard about it.
And what's his name? Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, the younger brother.
In Stranger Things.
Yeah, I think he's the only look from the trailer that I don't absolutely adore. He's like almost too precious looking to me, but I think he's going to win me over. But when I first started reading comics genuinely, like from my earliest memories, people would bring me a Superman comic or a Spider-Man comic once in a while, just as like, hey, look at this. But when I actually started buying them and seeking them out on my own, one of the first things that I started reading was the Fantastic Four. And first and foremost, the idea of a family. And at that time, like Franklin Richards, their kid was around a lot. Mm-hmm. And so like a lot of those stories felt like something that made sense to me and something that I was living to. But then also they were never a crime fighting. Like sometimes they had to fight bad guys, but what they were scientific adventurers, and it was so different than everything else. And then the fact that they were buddies with and would hang out with all the other Marvel characters, right? Like Wolverine would just wander in and sometimes be a Fantastic Four member for a while,
right?
Or like Ghost Rider shows up, or they have to go ask Tony Stark what he thinks.
Crossover things, yeah.
Me too.
So much. It's so much fun. It's such a little treat. And sometimes you learn about new characters that way, which is fantastic. I mean, I love that. But you might learn about a character you're not familiar with at all. Oh, it was from Fantastic Four?
Yes, there were a couple of Fantastic Four. There was a run of the Fantastic Four where they disappeared for some reason. And Ghost Rider and the Hulk, who was gray at the time, and Wolverine and Spider-Man became the Fantastic Four for a little while. And for some reason, they had to meet Blade, and Blade was involved in one of their missions or something. And that's the first time I ever read Blade in a comic. So, like, I knew of Blade vaguely before this movie came out. This movie was R-rated, and I was still too young. Until 98, I couldn't go see a movie that was R-rated. Yeah, I think this happened before my birthday. But I wore this shit out on VHS, Ashley.
Man, it is so fun. Well, and it's so funny because I turned it on to watch it last night, and we watched this maybe just a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago during Halloween. I think we were like, let's watch Blade, and whenever I get into that mood, I mean, I'm always in the mood for spooky shit, and this one's just so much fun. But I was like, I remember so many details from this film when I do a rewatch of it. I'm like, oh yeah. This movie sticks in my head pretty well. It's not one that I'm like, I kind of vaguely, it's not like Underworld for me, which was like, I don't remember shit from that movie until I rewatched it. But I think I've also probably given this way more viewings overall, because I just love it.
I might have had a choreographed dance to the EDM to open the...
It's the coolest opening to a film. I mean, it's so fun.
It's so good. It's so good.
Anyway, I mean, you see echoes of that in things all the time, still to this day. I mean, House of Usher. There's a scene in one of the episodes of House of Usher that is very much like that. And there's one in fucking one of the Matrix movies too, where it's like...
Okay. So that was the other thing that I wanted to point out as far as influential. This movie got very, very sniped. I won't say copied, right? Because like everything is a remix, but this movie was very influential on the Matrix. The first Matrix film, I think, came out in late 1999. Like they would have been beginning production and filming when this movie hit, and it hit big from the start. Like this was a very popular film.
Yeah, this movie hit really hard. It was a good one.
Well, I mean, it's fun. Like, it's dumb in a lot of places, especially by modern standards. And we're going to get there. We're going to poke some holes. But overall, it is so much fun throughout. Like, it doesn't... And this is one thing that the MCU very much sniped from this, is it never takes itself too seriously, right?
No.
Even in the middle of a life or death battle, if you have characters who every day is a life or death battle, then guess what? They are not doom and gloom about it all the time.
Right. There's going to be some quips. You might get some funny little quips.
Yeah,
I think the best thing about this movie to me is how quickly the lead female adjusts to what's going down in her life. So she's like, okay, I guess now I'm dealing with fucking vampires and I'm gonna learn to shoot a gun in 5 seconds. She's just like, yes, and the whole time.
So I don't think I wrote down the actress's name. I wanted to call her out specifically because she's not in a ton of other things.
She's
and
not.
I think she's honestly pretty great here.
I love her in this.
She's not asked to do that. The range of this is not insane. But obviously the title, the marquee, was Wesley Snipes, and then Stephen Dorff as Deacon Frost. He was a pretty big deal at the time.
At the time, he was, for sure. And he was like, there were such good foils for each other in this too. They were their scenes together were very fun. I mean.
In Bushe Wright, I'm sure I'm butchering her first name. In 'Bushe Wright, she was in Dead Presidents right around the same time in 1995.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was in Fresh too from 1994. So she had a little run there, but honestly, kind of seems like after Blade, they were like, I don't know what to do with her now. I don't know, man. That sucks.
Yeah, that is.
Well, I say that. No, she did some stuff all the way up to 2018. She's still around.
Well, that's good. Sometimes somebody's fallen off my radar so hard. I'm like, and they're good and they're talented, and I'm like, this person said no to
What happened?
this person said no to Harvey Weinstein.
Who did they turn down that they got in trouble for? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm like, well, why didn't Mira Sorvino work for so many years?
Man, okay, so we talked about the opening music, but like, so first of all, we get the flashback to his birth, which I just want to ask the question here, because this happens several times. Whose point of view is this supposed to be from? Like, does Blade remember his birth because of his vampiric ability? Like, I mean, if they could have talked about it, I guess. But he also, his mother recognizes him at the, oh, there's a big spoiler, I guess. Whoops.
Oops.
But, like,
that's from 1998, y'all. It's gonna be really hard to be spoiler free.
Yeah, right. Go watch it. It's on Peacock right now.
It is. All of them are.
But yeah, I don't get the flashback to his birth. I mean, I know narratively we know why we do it.
Why it's there, but
so that we recognize her later, right?
Us. But it's from our point of view. It's weird. If we were there, lurking in the room.
It's very strange to me. But after that, that's very brief, and then we go straight into this. The douchiest douchebag who ever douched, who we're all very excited to see get eaten. Chad. He is the chattiest Chad, man.
The chattiest Chad that ever chatted.
So, and right from go, what does he say? He says, "Oh, it's my heat seeker," as she grabs his crotch. Like, oh God, come on, buddy. But even his dumbass, as they stroll by, he notices those are body bags in the slaughterhouse there, Ashley. What's up with that?
So weird. You know, I love a party at a slaughterhouse, Joel. It really, really just kind of lets me know what is ahead for my day.
I want to remind you that where you and I went to college, there was a bar at a former slaughterhouse.
Yes.
So you and I have literally partied in a slaughterhouse a few times. Kind of smelled that way, y'all. Still, you can't get rid of that.
Look, listen,
I'm just telling you.
West Monroe has a certain whiff about it, and if you're downwind of that at all, it's a bad day in Ruston, Louisiana.
I don't know if I'd ever seen before this, though, the idea of vampires using a slaughterhouse for a processing place. That's a great idea, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's clean-ish, and also
not
easy to clean up.
But it's like the blood being there is not a problem.
Yeah.
No one is jealous of even like bodies being hauled out. Like, easy to hide them among the regular stock. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Coolers.
Well, also good for them. Like, they planned ahead. They've got body bags. Like, they're going to clean up their mess. I respect that. You know, if you're going to throw a rave, you leave no trace behind. It's like going hiking in a national park, you know?
That's right. Okay, we get into the actual dance party though, and the blood rain begins from the sprinklers. And I had not thought about it when we watched or you guys discussed Fall of the House of Usher, but there is a sprinkler scene in Fall of the House of Usher, and I was like, man, I bet Flanagan liked this movie too.
I bet he did. I bet he does. Yeah.
Here's one of my favorite things about this whole movie, and this is one of the examples of how they do a good job of telling and or showing us and not telling us, like giving us little hints of a broader world in a clean way. As soon as people see Blade, you hear a little murmur. Somebody says, Jesus. Somebody says, that's him. It's Blade, the Daywalker.
The Daywalker.
Okay. If you've literally got a slaughterhouse full of vampires, there's one guy alone, and they're murmuring about how they're all nervous, that's a great way to establish who the fuck this dude is, right?
Yeah, this guy's a threat or a concern at the very least. Also, like, look how he's dressed. Come on now. This is also like the heyday of like you have to wear very cool black clothes to do your job in a cool movie from the 90s. It's very important.
It's easy to say that's all the Matrix. It was not all the Matrix. It was like that way before the Matrix. It's not all Blade either.
It's not all Blade either. This was a thing. It was a whole thing.
And honestly, I think that this Blade costume is pretty well inspired by like 90s comics as well. Every comic character in the 90s had pouches everywhere, right? Just more pouches, more spikes, if you can put them on the costume.
If you could put like a chest piece or like a shoulder thing with like almost like the wrestlers, the Legion of
Yes.
that was a whole vibe.
Absolutely.
Good old days.
And again, everybody did it. Man, okay, I didn't know who he was at the time, and I had not connected him retrospectively. We did the same thing with Underworld, where I didn't know Michael Sheen was in it. Yeah, I was like, oh, hey, that's Michael Sheen. I didn't know who Michael Sheen was in 2000 or whatever. 98, right. I didn't know who Donald Logue was. He's great.
Yeah, he's in so many things. Like, he is a great character actor of our time. Yeah, he'll pop up in anything. I forgot he was in this until I saw him, and I was like, oh, this guy, love him.
Yeah, he plays Quinn, who, again, like an excellent running gag. First of all, he's like the world's trashiest vampire, and he appears a bunch of times even before the shit really hits the fan for him. You see him like 3 or 4 different ways.
He's always
and then throughout the film
up, you know, like he's like your dumb friend, you know.
Okay, it feels like he was turned 35 minutes ago, right? Like he's just real excited about being a vampire.
Very fresh.
But when Blade has him pinned up at the end of this opening sequence, he's speaking a Slavic language.
Yeah.
And I wonder, it occurred to me with the braids and the blonde hair, is he maybe Viking? I think he's old. I don't think he's new. Well, actually,
I think with all of the strange languages being spoken off and on throughout this film, that's a good bet that he's been around for a minute, hanging out with those guys, speaking those language.
Yeah, but I do sort of love the idea that he's like 17 forever, no matter how long he's been around.
Yeah, he's like derpy. He's just like he's gonna always spill food on himself. Like, he's that. I'm that person. I hate to think that I might be this kind of vampire. It's pretty terrible. I wouldn't enjoy getting my bits cut off and having to have new bits put on myself all the time, because that's like
so Blade says there to him while he's got him pinned up, he's like, I'm getting pretty tired of cutting you up. So apparently he's been slicing pieces off of him for quite some time, actually.
Yeah, they have a beef.
So Karen and the morgue tech, we meet them next at the hospital because we've taken Quinn's body in. Okay, again, really good world building. And I had never noticed this before, really. But like, you could have just had Karen wander into this whole situation, right?
Right.
And later, Kelly all of a sudden goes, wait a minute. What kind of doctor is she again? I'm like, well, they say at the beginning, she's a hematologist.
Yeah, conveniently. She's a hematologist.
So why would you have a hematologist happen upon this incident, et cetera, et cetera? She was dating the dude from the morgue.
Yeah.
I'd honestly never put it together, but that's clever. That was really nice.
I mean,
and apparently he wants her back and she's not so much
interested. No, he's making it awkward at work. Guys, don't make it awkward at work. We can't just leave.
I love how they make you not even mind so much that he dies, because like he very specifically says, I won't bring it up. And then they're standing over the body and she's like working and he's like, do you ever give a second thought about us?
Yeah, you don't mind. You're not very attached to him when this guy sits straight up and then proceeds to nom him down.
You know, the other thing that we haven't mentioned that this movie is absolutely influenced by, and you can see it a lot in Blade's arrivals and departures, I would say, from scenes. This is not that far away from Aiden's Batman, right? And then after 89, you get like a run of Batman movies. But that first one especially, people still were nostalgic for.
Because it was so good. It was so
Yeah. Well, and this one does all those things too. Like it's a fantastical world, and it's like soap opera dramatics.
Yeah.
But
and I didn't know anything about this being based on a comic book at first. When I watched it, I thought it was just a cool vampire movie.
Well, they don't sell it up, like they don't put a Marvel Studios on the front of it or anything.
That wasn't a fucking thing. You know, like they literally did not exist. But yeah, so I wasn't really aware of it. But when you after you know that, and like my experience with comic books is not like yours. Mine is very like, I got into the movies, and that made me interested in wanting to learn more about the characters. So I was like, I got to figure out how to read comic books in my fucking like 20s and 30s, and my brain was like, there aren't enough words, what is happening? And I was like, no, read the pictures, you dumbass. And so I have this whole like love and hate relationship with comic books, but it feels like some shots and things feel like frames from like a comic book, and I always love it. Batman, that original Batman, did so well with that, and this movie does it really well too. There's just like little moments that feel like you're literally looking at a frame in the comic book. I always love that feel.
Well, I do think you have to look at, I mean, I guess if you go back and compare, like, the 70s and 80s Superman movies and maybe even that 1989 Batman movie are like us thinking about like silent films basically, and then this movie and Spider-Man, the original one with Sam Raimi, and I guess that first X-Men movie from 2000, those are like the early John Ford, John Wayne westerns compared to like now we're making Unforgivens, right? So like it is an interesting genre that has become like a dominant genre in film. And I do think, even if you don't really like superheroes, I think it is interesting, especially if you do like vampires, because this one's full of that. Go and watch this thing just so you can get a better handle on like how we got here. Like, why did this all happen?
Yeah, if you really want to know how you ended up with the Marvel explosion, this was a very, very big reason why.
I mean,
it took time though. Wow.
Hugh Jackman's going to be working out and waving those claws around until he's 75, and this is why, honestly. Like, here it is. This is where it starts. And I mean, it is so weird in retrospect that they brought him back too. Like, it's crazy.
I love it.
Go watch those recent ones, folks. I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to surprise you.
We don't want to upset anybody.
Okay. So Blade comes to save, well, he doesn't really come to save Karen. He comes to kill Quinn, but he happens to decide to save Karen, or try to anyway. But these cops bust in and they are just shooting at Blade, even though ostensibly he's holding a hostage.
Right. He's got a person in his arms, and they're just shooting at him.
Like there's two guys from SWAT that start shooting like armor-piercing bullets.
Are we surprised that cops are shooting at a black man?
No, good point. Very good point, Ashley. I had not considered it right. Not only that, she's a black woman too. Like she was probably involved. They were resisting arrest. But see, right there is a perfect example, right? This is one of our first action sequences effectively, and Blade, the three cops first shoot at Blade, and he goes, "Are you out of your motherfucking mind?"
It's so great. Blade.
Man. Oh, okay. I love Blade and Whistler's hideout. It's an old factory, I guess. It is dope.
Cool. It very much has like Highlander vibes to it for me. I love it. And also, can we discuss Chris Christopherson?
That was my next note. Whistler, Chris Christopherson. He's got the best lines throughout this thing, and his delivery is perfect.
He is amazing. I love. Also, Chris Christopherson just died last year, right?
Yeah.
He just died, like just recently died in the past year.
When we were originally talking about doing movie nights, Chris had just passed.
Yeah. Yes. Like that man was 60 for like 40 years.
Yeah, he held up pretty good for a long time.
It's kind of like Sam Elliott. Like Sam Elliott has seemed like he's been like 50 to 60 years old for like 45 years. I think that
he turned 55 when he was 25, and he has stayed 55 since then.
Yeah,
he's now 75.
Steve Martin's looked 50 since he was 30. So it's just like some of these men just age in the weirdest way. It's like they hit one age and then they never, or they're at that age early and then they never age past it.
Yeah, I often think that is, I mean, that's one of the many benefits of being a man, I suppose, in our society, right? But it is very common, I think, for a guy to maybe look a little bit more mature than his age in his 20s, but then they just cap there, and they basically hold that with a few more wrinkles for 40 years.
You're allowed to have gray hair, like...
Yes.
I put powder on my roots just today so that I wouldn't look horrible on camera.
I think the other thing, though, that benefits us in particular is that we are not held to the same fashion standards. Like you can keep wearing the clothes that you wore at 25 effectively for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to make fun of you if you're a man, generally.
Yeah, no.
Like maybe for instance, they make fun of my cargo shorts, but that's just my own bad luck for when I was 25.
Look, listen, you never stop loving those. Look, I got so excited.
They hold everything, Ashley. Look, where else am I supposed to put it?
You do not have to convince me, Joel, because my favorite thing that's happened in the past year is that I started seeing green cargo utility pants back again for ladies. And I was like, that was my fucking uniform in the late 90s and early 2000s.
If I didn't think I was too pear-shaped these days, I would totally wear overalls, y'all. I was a big fan of overalls when those were 15 minutes.
I just pictured you in like some real like farmer.
I looked real
bibs.
cute at 12 and 14 in overalls. At 43, it would not work for me. I don't think.
I love it.
Okay, so but Chris Christopherson, though, genuinely, I can't imagine anybody else being in this role.
Yeah.
Other than the one thing that I did think, I was like, well, if Chris had turned it down or he wasn't around, Scott Glenn.
Oh, I love
could have done
Glenn.
this. I do too, and this is like right up his alley, right? The acerbic mentor figure.
But they knocked it out of the park with Chris Christopherson. He's fucking great.
Well, he's such an amazing human being, as it turned out too. Like, go look for some interview clips where him and the rest of the highwaymen are together, and he's talking about what the current American government's problem is. And this is in like the late 80s when he was berating their out of control right wingedness. So, yeah, he probably checked out at the right time, honestly. For being
God bless him, bless us all.
I want to acknowledge one more thing here. If you don't know this story, again, especially for our younger listeners, go look up what Chris Christopherson had to say about Sinead O'Connor.
Sinead O'Connor, yeah.
Yeah, Sinead O'Connor passed, I think, a couple of years ago now. But, of course, she was, and it's interesting, Ashley, there's a great documentary. You know, Saturday Night Live is celebrating their 50th anniversary right now. They're doing their show's coming up in like a week, I think. But they put out a documentary. I think Questlove was like the main moving force behind this.
I just saw him talking about it on a Hot Ones.
So the music video that he made, like a whole music video with combined a bunch of performances from across the years that starts with everybody just saying ladies and gentlemen, and it is dope. Go look that up. But there's like a 2-hour documentary called Ladies and Gentlemen, the Music of Saturday Night Live. And it talks about the cultural importance of their musical performances. And in particular, there's a section on Sinead O'Connor. And I think it is so telling that effectively everybody in that sequence acknowledges, like, without problem now, that she was right and we were all wrong about it. Well, guess who wasn't wrong about it? Chris Christopherson, because he defended her the next night. On stage, he defended her, told her to keep her chin up. On stage, stood up for her. Yeah. So Chris was a good dude, and he's a great asset to this movie. Good foil for Wesley Snipes, especially.
Funny.
I know Wesley Snipes in his later years is hard to work with on set. I do imagine these two got along pretty damn well on this set, though.
I like to think so.
There's right after Whistler's introduction. So he gives Karen a shot, and I thought this was funny. He's literally just like pouring garlic into her veins, apparently, like a liquid garlic substance.
They've got a really good juice press.
He says, like, well, they got that factory, see, so they got like industrial presses. They were making sheet metal in there. He says, I give her 50-50 whether she makes it through the night. And I was like, that's a sly reference. It's one of Chris Christopherson's greatest songs of all time. Help Me Make It Through the Night. Country ballad written and composed by Chris and released on his 1970 album, Chris Christopherson, or just Christopherson, excuse me. It was covered in 1970 by Sammy Smith on the album of that same title, Help Me Make It Through the Night. In 1982, Chris did a re-recording with Brenda Lee for the compilation The Winning Hand. It has since been covered by Tammy Wynette and Johnny Cash and Elvis Presley and Joan Baez and Brian Ferry and Mark Fitzel and Tyler Childers, who I had not heard his version of that yet, so that's on my list to do after this episode. But if you've never heard Help Me Make It Through the Night, and the other one that I just want to acknowledge, and there's not a reference to that in the film, but For the Good Times. Chris Christopherson wrote it. A lot of other people have covered it. He wasn't the first one to record it.
He's so fantastic.
I think For the Good Times is probably the saddest song ever written. It's like it's real close if it's not the saddest one. Help Me Make It Through the Night is sexy more than it is sad, but they're both real good for whatever ails you. I'll just say that.
I mean, Chris Christopherson's pretty damn good for whatever ails you.
Ain't that
I love the Highwaymen, man. My God, what great music.
Well, or his and Barbara's version of Star is Born. You know, he was a great actor in his own right. I don't think he had the career that he could have because he was so outspoken personally, honestly. And he's like, I don't need this shit. I'll go do other things.
Yeah, I do what I want.
Yeah. Okay, we meet our vampiric council here. I love this council. I don't think we get enough about the vampiric world in this movie. And my remembrance is that the following films end up like pretty radically changing the vampiric world in the background, you know?
Yeah, I can't.
None of them are interested in that, really.
I don't remember the sequels quite as much, but they do try to cram a lot of lightly referenced lore into this. It's like they kind of like, because this, I mean, again, 2 hours, y'all. There's a lot of like stuff in this movie. So I feel like they like make an effort at it, but they don't go far enough with it, or they're not like committed enough to it to really be pushing the point of it. Because there is this whole, like, the whole thing is about this ceremony, you know?
Yes.
And it's like they built some shit around that ceremony, like, just enough to make you know what was important and what was going to matter. But
right.
They definitely could have gone farther with it if they'd wanted to, but Jesus, it was already 2 hours long.
Well, I genuinely think that they decided on that set design for the final temple. Mm-hmm. And then they came up with some reasons why that might be the way that it is. And they're like, oh, there's 12 of them. Okay, there's 12 different leaders of the vampiric council. Yeah. That's what we'll do, you know. But it's like, there's interesting things here. There's good actors here. And I wish we had gotten a little bit more of that, honestly. Udo Kier is Dragonetti. He's like the leader of the council. Yeah. And he is so good.
He's fantastic in this whole movie. He's having a very bad time with these young upstarts.
Okay. We mentioned Stephen Dorff earlier, but like he plays Deacon Frost, who is a character created by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan as well. He's from the comics, and in the comics, the way that it was originally happened, his mother was pregnant and going into labor with him, and they called the doctor because there was no one there or whatever. The doctor shows up, but it's not actually a doctor. It's a vampire in disguise.
What?
And he bites and kills the woman, thinking the baby is going to die, leaves it behind. And that doctor who came in and killed her was Deacon Frost in the comics. It's interesting to me because this movie uses that, and like they show, okay, yeah, I'm the one that killed your mother. You know, again, reference to Batman in 1989, they had made the Joker the killer of his parents when that's not what was in the comics. So it's interesting. Moviegoers would be like, oh, they're doing the Joker thing. No, actually, they're doing the comic thing.
They're doing the comic thing, weirdly. I tell you what, though, if I have to watch Batman's parents die in another fucking movie, I'm going to lose my mind.
So James Gunn has said that he's not going to show the origin for either him or Superman, actually. They're going to go
That'd be really great,
kind of straight into it.
Pretty sure there's other shit you can talk about.
So there's lots of rumors that their Batman has already been cast and that he's going to be a lot older. Like the rumor that I heard was that Josh Brolin was going to be their Batman. I don't know if that's been confirmed or debunked yet, but that's apparently one of the people they talked to about it.
I don't hate that.
I would kind of love it, I think, honestly. Like, and he's the right age to get in this. And I know we just had an older Batman. Those were not good movies, y'all. I don't know what to tell you. Those were not great films. So let's do older Batman in some good movies.
Yeah.
We got a younger Batman already with Pattinson. Yeah. So like, let's do an older one.
Who cares? It's going to be a new one out in 8 months anyway.
That's what my wife's. She's like, there's too many of these anyway. I can't
I'm still beefing that they fired my guy from Superman. So
who was your guy?
What's his face?
Cavill.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, I hear you. It's got. Here's my thing. It's got to be a fresh start.
I like the direction they're going in. So what you said makes sense. I can
Corn
get on board
Sweat
with the
is this new guy's name.
Corn Sweat.
And he looks.
Shut up. His name is not Corn Sweat.
It's either Corn Sweat or Corn Sweet. I swear to God. Maybe it's Corn Sweat.
I thought you were like Corn Sweat. Like it's literally like Superman running through a field. Like he's got corn.
God.
That's how young and sweet he is. He's just Superman running through a field of corn sweating.
But
Jesus
I do
this
like.
It's going to be 4 hours long.
I know, right? I know. If they do give us an older Batman, though, like supposedly they're going to, I'm glad they're giving us a younger Superman. I think that relationship and that dynamic, where one is clearly the more powerful, and yet the other is the elder statesman and the leader, even though he's not as strong as the other guy, right? Anyway. Boy, we're far afield. Someone correct my pronunciation in the comments, please, with some phonetic. I swear to God, that's his name. He's a really cute boy.
Written. I hope it's Corn Sweat. I'm on Team
Here's the other thing they did great.
Corn Sweat.
They did great. They do a good job. Go look at the trailer again. His Superman looks so different than his Clark Kent. And for the first time ever, I'm like, oh, it makes sense why you'd forget that guy is, or why you wouldn't put two and two together. Okay. We were talking about vampires.
I think we might have been at some point.
So
Jesus Christ.
I love that. Okay. Oh, here's my note. Steven Dorff has never looked as cool before or since as he does in his first 3 scenes as Deacon.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, to me, he gets a little pasty and a little nasty.
He does look a little sweaty and clammy. Not
it's
as good.
When they put the sunscreen on him later, they never get back to his normal makeup or something, and he always looks a
little off,
glazed in a bad way.
Yeah, moist.
Okay,
he's a dampire.
He is a dampire. That's right. I like that. I like that Blade uses Karen as bait. Basically, first of all, she gets up and they're like, "All right, so you didn't turn into a vampire to hit the fucking bricks,
yeah." They're
lady.
Like, "Go on, get out, go on."
Congratulations, you know the secret about the world now.
Some cab fare. Have a nice day.
Yeah, pretty much. But the bad cop, the stoogey cop comes in to kill her, which, by the way, he goes, I'd forgotten about this too. She says, what happened to my friend back in the hospital? And he goes, oh, Curtis? Yeah, he's dead. But don't worry about that. She's like, why not? He's like, because you're about to die too, bitch. And then he jumps her.
There's some really good writing in this.
Oh man, it killed me. But Blade obviously has followed her into the apartment and saves her, and he kicks the shit out of the guy. And okay, where are they? And blah blah blah. We're going to follow this down. But I love the fact that even though Blade did save Karen,
he does not give a shit.
No. He doesn't want her to die because he is a good guy and he doesn't kill people, just willy nilly. But also, he knows the stakes of this thing, and her life matters not at all in the broader picture.
He don't know her yet. He don't know her like that.
Even when he does know her, he mostly doesn't care like that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, he's very detached, and I appreciate that. And I like a really moody, detached superhero occasionally.
Okay, so where do they go, though, Ashley? They go to this club. Everybody, and Blade's telling her on the way up to the club, everybody here is a vampire. Everybody on the outside is a vampire. That prostitute on the street corner is a vampire. Those bouncers are vampires. Yeah. Okay, what does he do? He takes this woman who tells him she's got no martial arts training. He's like, right. You know how to use this? No, but I'm a quick study.
Yeah.
That's not backup, Blade.
Yeah, that's not backup. But again, I appreciate her yes, and I will do this.
Sure.
Yeah, she doesn't need classes.
But okay, so he fights his way in, but there's no prep. There's no recon of this facility. It turns out Whistler is listening. And so he's going to break in at the end of this thing. But this should feel like higher stakes in the movie. This should feel like a desperate play for Blade.
This doesn't feel like a plan at all. Yeah. This is.
I'm going to go kill some more suckheads. He tried a bunch of them. Not many of them landed, I got to say, his little retorts. Yeah, anyway, this should feel like the end of the movie, and it's not the final fight of the movie. Okay, but meanwhile, the dirty cop has run away now to go tell on him to Deacon Frost, and Deacon is so overjoyed to see him that he promptly eats him at the party.
Yeah. He was just a little snack anyway. That's all.
So my first note is these vampires are really messy. And then I was like, I might want my tongue sucked too, actually. That's kind of fine.
They're messy. The special effects in this are very gloopy and
man, it's a perfect picture though of 98, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the physical effects, and there are quite a few, are quite good.
Really quite good. And then the special effects are a little wonky.
It's like, oh boy, that CGI does not hold up 27 years later.
Yeah.
Does
how many bubbles are you going to put into that person before you blow them up?
Right. It's like, how many bubbles will this computer do? Do that many. Do that many bubbles.
Do that many bubbles. Turn them red, and then pink, and then purple, and then red again. Explode.
All right, so Blade does get captured there. My note was like, oh, it's such a desperate entry. Well, he does get captured, but Quinn and his crew that come to beat him up and take him, they're not even at that location. They got ordered there from the penthouse, like across town or whatever. So I'm like, isn't this bar full of vampires? Why don't they all come down to fight Blade?
They don't want to fight Blade.
That's
not their business. That's not my business.
It's really not my job. I'm sorry.
It's
send in Quinn and the Vikings.
That's above my pay rate for sure.
Yeah, right.
I'm just here trying to have a drink at the bar.
So we think all is lost, and Blade's getting the shit kicked out of him here by Quinn, and he's got him like stapled to the wall with the things.
Pretty.
And Blade starts giggling. And Quinn's like, "What are you laughing at?" He goes, "I'm expecting company." So Whistler blows down the door and starts shooting everybody. And he's got, again, probably his best line in the whole movie, "Catch you fuckers at a bad time."
I love it. So good. Maybe the best line in the whole movie. Brett has a different favorite line, but I like that one a lot.
That one's worth the price of admission to me all by itself. It's "Catch you fuckers at a bad time." I can't tell you, but like the one time that I walked in on my roommate in college fucking, I was like, "Catch you fuckers at a bad time." Okay, bye, man. My bad.
Put a sock on the door.
So that's what I was like. It's the dorm, man. Like, put a sock on the door. This is simple. Anyway, the train chase here is pretty good, and I'd kind of forgotten about it entirely. Honestly, we lose Whistler. We don't know what happened to him.
Good action sequence.
But the two of them are fighting, and like him and Quinn struggling, and is she going to pick up the sword, and but won't it blow her hand off, and all of that stuff is cool. Okay, so finally it occurs to our girl to ask about Blade. "You're one of them, aren't you?" And he says, "No, I'm something else." And again, like, sometimes I think Wesley Snipes was taking himself seriously, even when the script was not.
100%. He's taking himself the most seriously.
Okay, there's an interesting point here that I had never noticed before, but it does stop some of the questions about, like, well, how does a baby vampire work? Blade's vampirism doesn't kick in until puberty. His bloodlust took over at puberty, Blade says. And so when Whistler picks him up, he's only like 13 or 14 years old. He'd only been on the streets for a few years at that point. But again, you can imagine a little feral vampire child would be a problem.
I mean, we know other parents who have struggled with their young vampiric children. So
Indeed.
There's not enough therapy in the whole city of New Orleans for you.
We get Whistler's origin story here too, which is pretty sad. He had a wife and child one time. He was just a normal schmo, and a vampire came in, tortured his whole family, killed his wife and kid. The way that he lays it out, it seems like he was there, but he didn't get killed or injured or something. I don't know. It was a little unclear to me. But the point, both these men were born out of tragedy and found each other for whatever reason. And so
they both have legitimate beef with vampires.
Yeah, like this is a personal revenge vendetta that they're out on. It's not just for the good of the community is what I'm saying.
No.
All right, so help me understand this, Ashley. What do you think Deacon Frost's position in Vampire Society is before this movie? So he shows up at that first vampire council and he's sitting in the chair. He's not a member of the council.
No. So my vibe from him is that he's kind of the leader of like the younger group of vampires, and also the leader of the group of vampires that were not born vampires that became vampires. So, and that being like a little bit of a societal rift in the vampiric community there. So I think he's kind of that, like the chosen leader of like the younger vampires. And so he's like kind of there representing the interests of the next generation.
And so the council has to respect him because of the power and the voice that he helps command, but don't respect him because of who he is and how he got there.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Effectively.
That's how
I think that's a good read.
That's my read.
I think that's it. I think that's exactly what it is. It's strange to me at times because they allow him so much, and yet it seems like if there is any authority, they have it. If there's a vampiric army of some sort, they should command it, right? They seem to be in charge. Where did he come from? Why did he get the authority that he has to begin with, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, listen to all these questions that Americans are asking themselves every second of every day right now. How did this guy come from? How did he get this authority?
It is interesting that this movie is effectively like an eat the rich for vampires, basically. And in the end, we want that guy punished.
Yeah.
It's like, is Blade a monarchist? That's interesting.
He might
I don't
be.
know.
He might have played a monarch. So people started getting concerned about Alexander Hamilton. This sounds like one person in charge for an awfully long time, sir. I don't think that's what we want.
Oh man. Okay, let's see where
His
where are
Blade
we?
of monarchist.
All right. I love, and I mentioned it earlier because Blade says that it's already happened before the movie starts, but I love the running gag throughout the film that they keep cutting pieces of Quinn off.
Yeah. Smashed his face against the side of the train going by. I loved that. Yeah.
Cut the other arm off.
Yeah, he's losing bits all the time. Showing off his new hand. Look at my new arm. It's all gross looking. Like, where the fuck did you get that arm from, dude?
When Deacon gets Blade's sword later and he's like, Quinn, hold out your arm. And he goes, why, man? They just got better.
It's so stupid. Like, is he regrowing them himself? Are they attaching new ones?
I think he is literally, because at one point we see him not with the arm half. Oh no, we do see the hand. At one point we see it cut off, and then we see it, but it's like sort of looks like it's burnt, and his fingers are extra long, and the finger
hand, big old witchy hand.
And then we see normal hands again, and I do think it's like a vampiric healing process. He can literally regrow an arm. One wonders how much, because like the arm dies over there, so how much could you cut off? Could you cut you in half, and would that work? I mean, if I avoided your heart, I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know. That works later.
Yeah, right. Where were we? Okay, let's see. Sunscreen and motorcycle helmets. Ashley, who knew? I mean, it makes sense to me why this could work, but I genuinely wonder, why haven't we seen that in other movies? Why does Lestat never just sunscreen up and put on a motorcycle helmet and gallivant about?
Then he would look moist and yucky the rest of the film.
They couldn't get the sunscreen off.
And
that's clearly what happened.
His hair up.
Yeah, okay, good point. The
that
helmet would ruin his hair.
No. Also, I don't think that our vampires are looking for ways to exist in the daytime. I don't think that they really care to do that. I think they're like, I'm the night. Let me do that.
Well, even the very old, I think eventually, once it gets full daytime, they're almost like forced to go to sleep and pass out effectively. The very young go to sleep even before the daytime gets there, or the sunlight gets there. Interesting, though. Okay, so Karen she says, took a trip to the hospital last night, borrowed some equipment. I love that she's just now, again, you talk about how quickly she buys into this.
Yeah, she's like on board.
Fuck my job.
Already stealing equipment from the hospital. She's injecting herself with shit. She doesn't know what it's going to do. She doesn't give a fuck.
Kelly asked at this point, she goes, as much as Whistler has been working on weapons for what we assume is 20 some odd years at this point with Blade, he's never thought of anticoagulant as a maybe something of interest. And I'm like, that's a good question, actually.
Right.
Karen does. She's like,
immediately. Here we go.
I love he's like, will that work to cure you? She's like, not a cure, but it'll blow the fuck up out of a vampire, which we see it absolutely does
in
later.
Action, thank goodness.
So it seems like Karen didn't catch her vampiric change quick enough, but she's come up with this cure, which Whistler's all excited. Would it work on Blade? No, this won't. And then again, we get one of those clumsier moments where she explains to Whistler how Blade became a vampire, and she's like, he just told you that story 30 minutes ago. Like, we don't need that.
I think I know more about this than you do, probably. Yeah, so strange. But yeah, I think too that the thing that they're thinking is that this could be a cure for anyone that has been turned into a vampire. Like, this is something that could be, we could get rid of.
I mean, she uses it against Deacon later as a threat almost, right? Like, I could turn you back now.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if she could. I don't know if she's sure she could, but she thinks she could. She's threatening it anyway.
She's very confident, Joel. This is a woman who is saying, what's next?
Yeah, right. That is very true. That is very true. So I mentioned earlier that this was influencing the Matrix, but they literally almost do bullet time at one point. Frost is holding the little girl hostage, and Blade shoots at him, and he dodges the bullets, but it is like very similar to the effect of bullet time from the Matrix,
Dude,
a year later.
How far does he fucking throw that little girl? I was like, I forgot about that. He fucking chucks her through a street vendor thing.
Through a fucking, like a food truck, basically. There's a food bus there.
Food cart. The fuck?
She goes straight through both sides of the sheet metal and stuff.
I was like,
okay, there's two moments in this movie where they throw human characters, and completely disregard the physics of the situation.
Yes.
This moment where Deacon throws the little girl. Earlier, though, Blade throws Karen out of the window of the hospital. Okay, they very specifically show that she lands in like a canvas, like soft landing or whatever, but she bounces from that and then rolls 3 times on the concrete of the roof floor. And I'm like, I mean, humans can't do that, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah, man. This little girl would not have gotten up out of the street to maybe be hit by the bus, is my point.
That little girl has a concussion.
That little girl is dead, Ashley. She broke her neck on her way through that fucking food truck. So crazy.
Like, that's some audacity to throw a child that far.
And Blade's like, go home. I'm like, she can't walk.
She's paralyzed from the neck down.
I gotta look at I ran my hand through my hair funny just then, and I was like, it's gonna look weird the rest of the show. Hang on. There we go. All right. It's doing some crazy fucking curls right now, and I'm digging it. Don't get me wrong.
It's because it's 78 degrees outside with
that's
like probably about 75% humidity.
97% humidity here right now.
We look
Absolutely.
so cute in spring and February, Joel.
We're very Damp-ires around here.
Jesus.
Okay. All right. The raid on Whistler and Karen is pretty fucking brutal. I'd forgotten about they beat the shit out of Whistler, and it feels like it, right?
It's awful. Yeah, it is bad. It is bad. Like, bad. And he looks that bad when Blade finds him later. Like,
dude, I'd forgotten about they cover him up with a sheet, but the whole sheet here is bloody from like above his head all the way down past his neck, where he's bled through and it's sticking to him.
All over the bottom, all over like the bottom third of it too, because they shot him in the leg, so he's just all fucking a mess. He's a mess.
Well, and they don't say it in the film exactly openly, but the canon of the thing is that he's bitten here too. He's been bitten a bunch of times while they were torturing him afterward. After Deacon leaves and leaves him to Quinn, like they continue to fuck Whistler up for a while. But he's still not quite dead by the time that Blade gets there. And so they have a little exchange. It's really sweet, honest. It's a little silly the way that like Blade's turned around and he starts talking in the background. It's almost like a jump scare for a second. But I love, though, the moment Blade takes off his sunglasses, first of all, and he gets the towel or whatever, and he tries to wipe some of the blood off of his neck. It's like, there's nothing to be done. And Whistler's telling him that the whole time.
Yeah.
But still, in that moment, you do get, no matter what Blade is, and Blade's a weapon as much as anything, but also this is his father, effectively.
This is a real relationship that has been, like, it's, and I'm kind of glad in this movie they don't like try to force like a romance in any way, form, or fashion, but that this relationship is real and this relationship is important.
It's a really great moment. Like Chris does a good job and Blade does a good job. Wesley does a good job, and it's awesome. Somewhat ruined by the sequels. I'll just say that much and leave it there. It's a little bit softened and not as good.
True.
Although, okay, I was also reminded in this wonderful moment, man, Blade's got big ass Judge Dredd pistols, doesn't he?
Man, those guns are like gigantor. They are so big.
He whips it out and points it at Whistler, and Kelly and I are both like, Jesus
Christ, you don't have anything smaller than that, bro? Like, fuck me.
Fucking semi-automatic hand cannon. Yeah. Like, what are you doing, man?
Can a small piece would be lovely for this project. Thank you. I want to blow my entire face off.
So Blade's preparation scene is pretty cool. This is one of those examples of like, there's an art house version of this movie that they wanted to make that the studio wasn't going to be happy with.
Right.
So it's like hidden in and amongst just a standard action fare. But like, there's so much weird. So first of all, they show all of his weaponry as he's like making new bullets and loading the pistol and everything. But it's like, we see the motorcycle being uncovered. We see the meditation, and then he like overturns the altar and he cuts the roots off of the ceremonial plant. And you're like, what the fuck was that about? Yes. And it's all being shot in slow motion with like a drone sound in the background. And you're like, did Blade do acid? What happened?
Did I do acid? Did I microdose something in my...
It's like Francis Ford Coppola directed that scene. Don't even worry about it. It's cool.
Don't worry about it. Just lean in.
He came in. He was in for 2 days. It was fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
But I do love that though. All right. And then we go back to Deacon has Karen, he's holding her hostage or whatever. And this is one of those examples of how, first of all, Deacon never loses the pasty white after this. He looks like he's still got the sunscreen on. But also, he gets real gross here. He goes, I see such a beautiful woman. Great skin. I'd like to see you happy. That's all. I'm like, ooh, pass. Pass. Never mind. I said you were cool earlier.
No, you're gross. And it's because now he's all moist and disgusting. Now he's like a wet sponge of a person. Or
as Blade starts,
it's like in X-Men, in that first X-Men movie when that senator turned into that that wet
when
face.
he like squeezes through the wall, through the bars.
Gross. Oh my god,
so nasty. Honestly, it was probably the same CGI team that did these.
I bet it was.
So Blade starts wrecking shop, breaking into the place where Deacon is, and we see what that anticoagulant does to vampires. It is not pretty.
No, nothing that happens to these vampires going forward is going to be pretty. That's disgusting.
All right, so earlier in the film, and I never picked up on this back in the 90s, but earlier in the film, we see Deacon sitting in his computer at one point, and he's working on the translation of the ancient scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
And in the background of his bedroom, there's like this sealed coffin bed that unlocks and opens. We see a woman get out and walk over to him and say something, but we never see her face. Now we know why we never saw her face, Ashley. As Blade makes his way into the facility, Mama's in that bed.
It's his mama. Blade's mama. She's not dead.
I was very surprised. I mean, I remembered it obviously as having happened, but when I saw this in the moment in 98, I was super surprised by it, honestly. I mean, obviously in retrospect, that's why we see the flashbacks to his birth.
Right.
But cool twist to the movie though. And now we know
she's fucking Deacon Frost. Ew.
It's like, what could you imagine that's worse? Is my greatest enemy has my mother, some real kill the stepfather stuff going on there.
They've been hanging out for a minute.
Well, they've been fucking for 20 years, Ashley, at least. Yeah. Vampires are my people now, Eric.
That's right.
Yeah, I was surprised when it happened. I love though that this all worked out like this. I will say just generally, they hint at these things, vampire Bibles and ancient vampire temples.
Ancient scrolls and temples and things like that.
But like, I don't know. I need more than that. If vampires were in charge in some way in the past where they were able to build these temples like this, like, why don't we have any of that history? Or like, are you saying that the ancient Egyptian empire was actually,
vampiric?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess they were
tied into something realistic.
Yes. I mean, that's what Anne did, right?
Yeah.
In her novels, it effectively becomes part of the Egyptian dynasty or whatever, or it's affected by the Egyptian dynasty. I dig that. Like, put it in the real world somehow. And also, it didn't become this monolithic. The blood religion in Anne's world died very quickly, actually. Yeah. And so in the grand scheme of human history, they weren't in charge for that long. Anyway, I feel like you hint at some really interesting things here, and I either want more or maybe just don't worry about
more. None. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Okay, Deacon throws Karen down a hole. Oh, I had forgotten about this entirely.
Forgot about this hole entirely too.
And the whole time they're taking her down there, I'm like, what is this about? And finally at the very end, it comes out, oh, your buddy Curtis, he didn't quite die. He didn't come back though either. He's like a zombie.
He's like a zombie, man.
It is interesting. He seems to have some brain functioning still because he's speaking, but his voice has been incredibly affected and his reasoning is very simplistic and almost like on program or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
hungry.
Cool. Ravenous. But gross. I think like, again, that's an example of like, that's cool, man. Show me. Do you have like a whole society of worker zombies or something?
Zombies, like, yeah, exactly. Like at the end of Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, so she is super resourceful, though. She kicks his ass a little bit and then stabs a bone or something into the cliff and starts climbing her way out.
Yes, this girl is ready. She didn't know she was ready. She'd be ready.
Okay, so I will say, and I've mentioned her before because she appeared in an Interview with a Vampire, but Radon Chong, one of my favorite movies of all time is Commando with Radon Chong and Arnold and Sylvester God bless it, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm putting them together in my head here. Arnie. But in that movie, Radon basically gets nothing to do. There's like one moment of activity where she's like actively kicking a bad guy off. And otherwise it's like very, damsel in distress. Karen here is not damsel in distress.
Karen
ever, really.
is ready for what's coming next.
Yeah, I really
like that about Karen. I really like her tenacity.
So they are gonna lock Blade into this Iron Maiden box.
Yeah.
And Ashley, they couldn't help but give us a little mama naughtiness here too. I love it. They're like, oh, this is a vampire movie. We should put a little incest in here. Honestly,
you know,
is what we should
just a dash of inappropriate.
They're two beautiful people. It's going to be weird if we don't let them touch a little bit, right?
Yeah, she should almost lick him. It'll be great. It'll be really good. Makes everybody so comfortable.
It is interesting to me, though, that is her. She never appeals to him from a motherly perspective. She goes straight to this seduction. And I think, I mean, to me, the way that I read it is honestly like the inherent like devolution that takes place to your morals and ethical whatever your structure of who you are as a person when you get vampiric blood, right? You have to turn into this in this world, at least.
That version of her, the version of her that would have been his mother, died, you know, when she became a vampire. So she's this different version, you know. She does not consider herself his mother.
And this one would maybe like a roll into hay later, Mr. Wesley. I mean, I will say he looks good once you strap him up like that. I will.
Yeah. Absolutely. Everybody's looking good. So gorgeous. Again, a gorgeous cast. It's very...
So we joked about it felt like they came up with the temple idea and then worked backwards for how this movie was going to work. But I will say the temple idea is really cool. Like they cut his wrists and his neck, it looks like in this box, and that pours blood down into the temple properly. And then that's dripping down the hieroglyphs or whatever onto the head of each member of the tribe.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen Cabin in the Woods, which is one of my fucking favorite horror movies. There's kind of like a similar sort of effect in Cabin in the Woods in you know, in one way. I don't want to spoil it because it's a fucking great movie.
Blood dripping down into a crevasse of some sort. Yeah,
you know, grow through the shape of things like little hieroglyphs and things like that. It's very kind of a cool effect. I like it when
it's neat.
I always enjoy it.
It looks really cool.
I'm a sucker for it.
I mean, and I joked about it earlier, but genuinely, I do like that moment where these thugs are like, because first of all, none of these vampiric council are good people, right? Like Dragonetti.
These are all asshole vampires.
Yeah, they're all terrible. First of all, they're probably all millionaires and billionaires too. So like, eat the rich. But
yeah, they hate the people that are not full-blooded vampires. Yeah, these guys are fucking Nazis. Nazis.
Not only are they murderers every night, but they're racist murderers every night. Like, no, out with you. So when they're like, you know, they grab their heads and they force them up to be part of this. I love all of that stuff, honestly. And it is interesting to me how effectively it turns into like a countdown. It's a race. Is Blade going to get re-energized, or is Deacon going to get upgraded?
Yeah.
And they both happen simultaneously anyway. I dig it.
Might. Yeah. It's gonna, and then we're going to get into an excellent fight.
So, before he actually gets the blood on him, though, there's a moment where Deacon and Quinn are going downstairs in the elevator, the lift or whatever. And Quinn goes, I'm going to be naughty. I'm going to be a naughty vampire god.
So stupid. I love it. It's like the Bill and Ted of the vampires.
So Karen she breaks in there and releases him, cuts him out, and then she's like, okay, we got to give you some juice. Just drink from me. And it's an interesting sequence. First of all, the only time in this whole movie where the vampiric drinking is sexy is right here between Karen and Blade.
Yep.
And I mean, she's into it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. She's like, don't stop. And I'm like, he probably should. You don't have that much, like, we only have so much blood in us, ma'am.
It's so funny. In 98, when I watched this, I was certain that she kept saying from the beginning, stop, as in like, that's too much. And I've had, no, sir. She says, don't stop a few times.
Yeah. If you're not sure, you can turn on the subtitles, which my old ass does all the time.
All the time. All right, so Deacon is excuse me. Deacon finally gets his upgrade. Again, cool moment. The blood splashes on his face and he wipes it all over himself, and you see like his eyes begin to swell. But then we get the bat wing skeletons breaking out of everybody.
They're so cute.
It is really
adorable.
Well, I thought it was an interesting way to like visualize the vampiric essence of these
Yeah.
people, right? Like, hey, how do you pull their magic out
Right.
of their very bodies and
Yeah.
absorb it into yourself? And that's a good, it was a cool way to show it.
Yeah.
And it totally works, and you get the point of it. And when it's done and he's more than he was standing there, like, you buy it. Again, they change his eyes into full blood
they're all
red, which is
bloody.
cool. There's the good moment though where one of his little girlfriends says Deacon, and he goes, not anymore.
Change your name, I guess. You're gonna give himself a symbol like Prince.
He's Lamagra. Lamagra definitely has a symbol.
He definitely has a symbol.
Definitely has a symbol. I love how quickly Blade kills Quinn. Quinn's like, fuck you, I got this guy, and goes running for him, and he just slices his head off immediately.
It goes to show you that Blade's just been toying with him this entire time and cutting off, innocuous bits. But no, we're done with you now. We're done.
There's a bigger fight to be had. Okay, so other than the lengthy fight sequence that we get here, why would Blood God Deacon Frost send anyone else to fight this dude? Like, he literally said, get him!
Yeah.
If you're a god at that point, why don't you just dispatch the motherfucker outright?
Like, why? You go do the thing. Send your little dummies in there for it. Rude.
So our anticoagulant comes back into play here. Deacon thinks it's the serum and disregards it, basically, doesn't consider it a problem for him. But Blade's able to fill him full of them.
Man,
the first one he blocks off, but then he gets like 10.
And then he goes real gross, you guys.
It is interesting the way that they set up this fight. Like, Blade cuts him a million times. I really like the sequence where he's just steady swinging the blade, and you see the cloth coming off of Deacon.
Yeah.
But it's happening so fast you don't even see the wounds because he's healing that fast at that point. That's really cool, the way that they do it all.
There's
honestly.
some really good stuff in that fight. I enjoy. There's some really, really enjoyable stuff in that whole scene. There's some lazy sword work in it too. But I'm just like, it's just because I know it's because they want to go so fast. They want to make it seem like everything is so fast. But there is a little bit of lazy sword work in it.
It's such a crazy thing when you begin to learn more about swordplay or on stage weapon play at all, or on screen weapon play. And obviously film is a little different than stage, which you and I have both done 100%. Extensively. But like, regardless though, and I don't think everybody understands this, even people in the industry. You and I were very specifically taught by a teacher, Mark Gwynn, who is always story first. If there's not a story in the violence, then what the fuck are we doing it for?
Yeah, and the approach that it's not a fighting skill, it's an advanced acting skill. Like, it's because when you're at the point that you're ready to fight, you're out of words. Like, I remember the first time he said that, I was like, yeah, that's right. That's right. So
that doesn't mean that you're out of emotion or feel. You're carrying the emotion further because the words no longer do them justice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so there's a couple, and nothing will ruin something for me faster than shitty combat. Like, I watched a really great production of August Osage County at the Arkansas Rep, and then there was a slap and a choking, and I was just like, you couldn't pay someone to come choreograph that just so you don't completely take people out of the moment of this great work that all these actors have put on stage, and now boom, one little sloppy piece of choreography later and I'm completely out of the moment.
Honestly, that background for you and me is one of the reasons why, when people began to talk about intimacy coordinators, which is really honestly after my time in college where that ever became a thing, but
love that.
When people first mentioned it, I was like, well, yeah, of course we should.
Why haven't we been doing that the whole time? Duh.
Because again, it's the exact same idea. Your emotions and your feelings have gone further than words can carry you.
Yeah.
And we have to physicalize them now to advance them with each other.
As a performer, you have to be set up to be able to do that as genuinely as you can. The only way to do that and commit to it fully is to do it safely, because you won't ever, like, I had two actors one time that wanted to slap each other so bad. They wanted to really slap each other on stage. And I was like, absolutely not. We're not fucking doing that. But they were like, finally I was like, you have to slap him as hard as you pretend to slap him every night. Do you feel good about that? You want to do that to his face every night? I don't care if she does. I want her to. I was like, you guys are fucking morons. It's never going to look as good. She's going to pull that slap every night.
And also tomorrow night, you're going to have a big ass bruise across your face the whole play before you get slapped.
Before you get slapped.
This isn't a play about how you've been being beaten for the last 10 years.
Exactly. Right? Jesus Christ. People are crazy. Lord. We digress again.
Anyway. Yes, but the end of that fight is pretty satisfying, and there are several moments in it where it rises above. I think overall, this was very much a time period where the audience wasn't even sophisticated enough really to understand when are we pacing time, right? Like we joked about that moment where they're doing high kicks back and forth. But in 98, I don't think the average movie first of all, we didn't have DVD and we didn't have Blu-ray and we weren't pausing it and whatever, right?
So doing like slow-mo frame by frame. You know how many fights I've watched frame by frame, since this time period? A lot.
Well, I mean, I think about how much I've broken down like those hallway fights from the Daredevil show on Netflix.
Holy shit, yes. And that elevator fight in the Captain America and Winter Soldier. Is it Winter Soldier? So good.
Yes, 100%. Those are perfect examples of, and honestly, in all of those circumstances too, they are also very good examples of a story being told through the physicality. You watch that hero rise and fall and rise again, and the way that the villains react to him and like their own internal stories. You can see it all in the violence. It's very, very good. When that's great, it's so great, man.
It is.
This does not quite rise to that level, I think, but it is fun. It's super fun.
Very fun. Yeah.
And then I need you to define this for me. Explain this to me. We get our fairly fucking classic line at this point. Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
That's Brett's favorite line in this film.
Was that a cliche? Have you ever heard anyone else say that?
No, never in my entire life. No, not once. But I think about it from time to time, and I know exactly what those motherfuckers are trying to do.
I'm like, too.
Just doing everything the hard way.
I mean, I have felt like I've been ice skating uphill a few times in my life, but I did not.
Uphill skating.
I did not know that was a parable.
No. I don't think we live anywhere cold enough that would be a parable for us, Joel. This might be a
There's 4 listeners in Wisconsin.
That are like,
you motherfuckers are from Louisiana. Of course you don't have parables about ice skating.
You'd fall through your pond and die.
Man. All right. So one other thing. All right. There's this gigantic explosion of gore when Deacon is killed.
Yes.
Blade gets none on you. He blocks himself like it's coming.
Yeah.
He doesn't even get a little spritz. Not even one little.
And the dude explodes like splatter porn explosion. It is so gross.
Covers the temple.
Yeah.
But not Blade.
Yeah.
I got money that was a Wesley Snipes note. They're like, all right, Wesley, which one of these blood sprays do you prefer? He's like, how about none of those actually?
I want it everywhere, but not on me.
Yeah, you just go ahead and don't spray it in my direction, actually.
That'd be fine.
Okay, so it's interesting to me because this is something I think that again, Marvel and there were producers involved on this project, like Avi Arad especially, that ended up being involved on the other Marvel projects that ended up becoming the MCU eventually. Kevin Feige was not involved on this film. His first movie that he played any major role on was X-Men, the 2000 X-Men movie. But it's not a post-credit sequence, but they do a pre-credit sequence. And it's exactly the sort of scene that we would see again and again and again in the MCU eventually. And lots of other superhero movies do it now too. Totally disconnected from the storyline. No explanation of where it's going. Just a hint, hey, there's more adventures here for Blade. Why don't you come on back?
Yep.
I do love the idea that the vampires of Moscow are up to no good in the dark alleys of Mother Russia.
I do
and
too.
He's like, hello, comrade.
Hello, comrade. Happy to see you.
Man, it's so fun. Y'all, if y'all haven't watched Blade in a while, go watch it again.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It doesn't feel like 2 hours.
No, it really doesn't. It is a lot of movie, but the good parts and the joyous parts, and there are quite a lot for a movie that's this dark, honestly.
Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah, it's deliciously delightful. It's a very good action film, you know, as well. If you just kind of approach it from like an action movie sort of mindset, you're going to have a very good time.
I think this is a great example too, Ashley, that we do not require all of our entertainment to be high art. Like this is
Jesus,
not this is not Shakespeare.
No.
It's just good fun.
I don't want
even when you boil it down, you can still have a quality product. And when we get that from the shows that we discuss and the movies we discuss, we praise it. And sometimes when it does not quite live up to that good product, we don't mind pointing it out.
Nope, we'll tease it. We'll praise you. We'll tease you. We'll enjoy it either way most of the time.
I'm crossing my fingers that we're not about to enter a bad stretch in the old Mayfair Witches camp.
Yeah, we got what, 3 more episodes?
3 more episodes.
Three more episodes, and I'm not in love with what we're doing, but we'll see. It's much better this season than last.
100% agree with that. It is absolutely improved.
We probably should. It came upon us too quickly to do it. I should have done a rewatch of the first season because I have forgotten a ton of shit in the first season.
Man, I tell you, here's one I'll go ahead and tell you that we got several comments about. You and I both mentioned there's an offhanded comment in episode 5, the last episode that we discussed, about Cortland being immortal.
Yeah, that's what
he is, in fact, immortal.
How the fuck did we miss that?
You and I missed it. Yeah, he had, I think it's MS in the show. He had a wasting disease of some sort. And his deal with Lasher was to get immortality to do whatever else he needed to do for the family. So, yeah, he's immortal in the show, and we just missed it.
Yeah.
My point in that is, anytime, even for those of us who are literally trying to do this in some sort of critical fashion, we can miss things. It's one of the reasons why I love this audience. They're really good about feedback in a positive way. We appreciate you.
Yeah, and because the other thing is, we watched it a year ago.
Boy, more than that, even like a year and a half ago now.
And so thank you for the help. Like, we're gonna forget things. I forget a lot of things.
I don't know if you know, but there have been a lot of things that have happened this past year.
Look, listen, it's been a whole year. January was like 8 months, so God only knows.
January was roughly 8.5 months long. It was weird. I don't know. I'm hoping February won't go quite so long. We'll see.
I'm hoping not either.
We will be back next week with a regularly scheduled episode as we get back into Mayfair Witches. As Ashley said, we got 3 episodes left of that. Then we're going to get into some movie nights for you all. We're going to get into some book club episodes. We're going to be covering Merrick, the next book in the Vampire Chronicles.
I've not reread Merrick since I read it the first time, so I think
I've only read Merrick. I think I've read Merrick twice. I think I read it once in hardback when it came out, and I believe several years ago I read it as an audiobook when I like raced through the series as I was getting ready for Prince Lestat or something maybe. But yeah, I have not read it in depth, and it's been a long, long time since I've looked at it. So I am excited to get back into that too. I'm excited about the movie nights we've got coming up. We've got a lot of good ones. We appreciate you for checking this one out. This is a little lagniappe for you, a little bonus for Black History Month.
Little treat.
I'm excited that we could do this, and I hope that everybody comes and joins us again next week as we get back into Mayfair Witches. And again, if you're not watching Mayfair Witches, that's cool. We'll keep you up to speed. You'll know what's going on even if you don't watch.
That's right.
Ashley, as we release this, it'll already be over, but do you care about the old bowl of soup?
You know I do. I'm going to be at a Super Bowl party tomorrow, having myself a big old time. I'm rooting for the Eagles. I'm rooting for the Eagles because I've got this thing for Philly right now. I got kind of a hard on for Philadelphia. It has a lot to do with Abbott Elementary and Gritty.
Nice.
It's like the combination of those two things brings so much joy to my life that I got to go for Philly this time.
I dig it. I'm fine with that. And honestly, the Chiefs are okay, but they have been here a lot lately. Yeah. I'm fine with a new somebody wearing the hat for a minute.
I love an underdog.
I don't care about the bowl of soup. I will admit, I am excited as always for great commercials and for
halftime,
some new trailers. We'll see all the new movies that we're going to be looking forward to next year and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. That will wrap up our episode of Articulate Coven about Blade from 1998. Who knows? We might revisit this series in the future. There are 2 more. I will say they are lesser films, both of them.
I feel like they are lesser films, but I also haven't
The second one is it's not Guillermo del Toro, is it? The director of the second one was an RC guy, and the second one's the one that has the vagina vampires. Their face opens up in the middle, and it's a weird.
Yep. Oh, yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. The third one's got Ryan Reynolds in it.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Alba too.
No, it's
No, the other Jessica,
the one that's married to the NSYNC guy. No. NSYNC, not Backstreet Boys. Justin Timberlake.
I don't know.
Jessica Biel.
Is she married to Jessica Biel?
Jessica Biel. Married to Justin Timberlake. Yes.
I don't think I knew that. Boy, I am clueless.
I will always help you with pop culture trivia. It might take me a minute to get there, but Jessica Biel is in that one.
There you go. We got all sorts of fun stuff that we could do in the future, revisiting this franchise and others. Thanks to everybody who suggested this, and thanks to everybody who told us how much you were looking forward to it so that we'd bring it back up again.
Yeah.
Until next week, we have been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven.
Thanks for listening to The Articulate Coven. If you enjoyed the show, check out our groups on Facebook and Discord. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Or find us at articulatecoven.com and wherever you listen to podcasts.